Okay, let's go.
You guys good?
Hey.
All right, we good?
Keep going.
The clock, it's ticking.
Off we go.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
It's time for 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS.
Tonight, Eye on America, why this method of helping those with opioid addiction also brings controversy, then tracking the explosive growth of California's park fire, and breaking news affecting thousands of products sold on Amazon on the CBS Evening News.
The Secret Service counter-sniper teams, nor members of the former president's security detail had any knowledge that there was a man on the roof of the AGR building with a firearm.
He's not against anything, but he loves family. It's very important to him.
Israel has every right to defend itself, certainly for the things that we just talked about from malign Iran-backed proxies like Hezbollah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. The acting Secret Service director testified on Capitol Hill today at a Senate hearing looking into the assassination attempt on former President Trump.
The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels.
Failure on multiple levels. We're going to have more on that in a moment, but we're going to start on the campaign trail. Vice President Kamala Harris is in Georgia for an event tonight. Meanwhile, former President Trump and running mate J.D. Vance are getting ready for a busy few days ahead. Vance is in Nevada, and tomorrow, Trump will attend the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago. Finn Gomez and Ed O'Keefe are covering the campaigns for us. Finn Gomez is right here at the desk. Ed O'Keefe is in Atlanta. Ed, let me start with you. Set the scene for us, and I understand you were able to talk to some voters in Atlanta about the change in the campaign and what effect it may or may not have had in Georgia.
Oh, Major, what a change it is. You know, a few weeks ago, we would have been in a vestibule with the president, maybe a few dozen people. Today, we're in the streets of Atlanta, and this modestly sized sports arena expected to fill up with as many as 15,000 people on site. I want to show you one thing that really speaks to how different this campaign is compared to what Joe Biden was doing. Daryl's going to show you. That woman over there in the green is DJ Tammy, who is warming up a pretty eclectic crowd of Georgians from Metro Atlanta and from across the state who we met today. And Major, I think it is safe to say, as we have seen evidence over the last week, that the Harris campaign has uncorked something in this country that was desperately waiting to be engaged. We talked to some people who've been waiting since 9 a.m. this morning for an event that doesn't begin until after 7 p.m. about why they're here and why they're excited about the vice president. Take a listen. Does she make it easier for Democrats to win Georgia in November?
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Why?
Well, I think it is the unity. I think there's those of us who were afraid to admit that we were blue in a very red state have now been given the permission to stand up and really voice our opinions. People can make fun and think that she's silly and whatever, but it's the joy, right? I think we have joy. She brings joy and excitement. It's not just older people yelling the same old things, right? It's really a joy and it's a hope.
Major, you heard that woman say the word joy, that there's joy in this campaign again. I vividly remember sitting with you in Des Moines earlier this year as this campaign season was beginning and saying there's very little joy in the contest that we're set to have. Now that Harris is in this race, there are people suggesting that may be part of what's going on here. She has brought a different kind of energy and enthusiasm and a whole different cultural perspective to this. We've heard some classics like, okay, you know, maybe Brick House is about as old as the songs are getting at this event, but The Wobble, Superman That Hoe. I mean, those are the kinds of songs you don't hear at Joe Biden events, at Donald Trump events, but it speaks to the kind of voter, the kind of person that is now engaged in the election like they were not before last week.
Ed O'Keefe, stay right there. You know your way around a vestibule, and you know your way around DJ Tammy, so I need you to stay right there. I want to talk to Finn Gomez here for a second. Finn, about one thing that Ed O'Keefe just captured.
Sure.
You and I have been to lots and lots of Trump rallies.
We have.
Those are the rallies defined in America for the last 8 years where people show up at 9 for a 7 o'clock event.
Right.
That are in arenas, not in vestibules or small places. Harris now is showing some of that mojo on the campaign trail. That has got to give those in the Trump inner circle a bit of concern.
Well, you have been seeing that enthusiasm level raise, just probably as loud as DJ Tammy is going right now with those speakers. But honestly, like, there is that sense of a night and day difference by that enthusiasm you're seeing build from the base. I would say that in speaking to people close to the Trump campaign, they do know that the dynamics of the race have changed, absolutely, but they had been prepared for this. They had been prepared for the possibility of Harris taking over and moving to the top of the ticket. So you've seen that. You're seeing like this new big ad buy that came out, $12 million ad buy in 6 battleground states today. So they're going out, they're being aggressive. They feel that they still make their case.
And to try to define Kamala Harris differently than the way she is presenting and suggesting that she is, if not too progressive, too liberal, or possibly dangerous.
Right, and you're seeing that in those op-ed ads.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That is their strategy, and it's a concerted and strategic effort that you're going to be seeing in the next few days, especially.
Ed O'Keefe, back to you in Atlanta, and I hope you can still hear me. What is the sense there about the vice presidential pick for Vice President Harris, either timing or direction?
She was asked on her way here, Major, whether or not she has made her selection. She told reporters she has not. The at least public elimination of Roy Cooper and Gretchen Whitmer in recent days suggests that it's a much smaller pool of people that are in contention, unless there's someone out there we just haven't heard about. The fact that we continue to see Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, Senator Kelly, Governor Walz of Minnesota so actively out there, in essence, campaigning for the job, auditioning, is a sign that they must believe that they are still in the mix. And, you know, our expectation is we'll get an answer before August 7th. And CBS News learned today that the plan is for Harris and her running mate to do a battleground state tour next week, once the ticket is announced, to get out to places beyond Georgia, probably to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina. Stay with me, folks. Those 7 states are basically it. And if they can hit those states pretty quickly with the kind of momentum we're seeing here tonight, that probably drives this race back to an even contest, as recent surveys have suggested it's headed back towards. Some even today now suggesting the vice president might have a slight advantage, suggesting again that she has uncorked or brought back to the party a handful of people, collections of people across these key states that had not been engaged and that were indeed sitting on the sidelines. One woman today said, my son, who's 27, this is an African-American woman, she said he has not felt at all like any side had been talking to him. Her mere presence in this race, he said, has excited her son, has made him interested in participating, making sure that his friends and coworkers do, and he finally feels that somebody is speaking to him, his experience, his concerns, in a way that nobody else had before. So as much as they love President Biden and appreciate his service, this crowd certainly would suggest to you they're pleased that somebody else is running instead.
On the scene for us in Atlanta, Ed O'Keefe, thanks very much. Finn.
Very quickly, the one thing I do want to add is, yes, we have seen that boost amongst for the Harris campaign. We have been seeing that in the polls, but it really has been elevated to a dead heat. It's still a dead heat with Trump having an electoral map advantage at this point with 3 months out, 98 days to go. I would add also one of the reasons we've been talking to sources close to the vetting process on the Harris pick, right? And one thing that has not happened yet, which is also delaying this and narrowing the field, is the fact that she has not had her official interviews with these top contenders yet, which is we are being told is going to happen in the next couple of days.
Probably via Zoom or phone call or some other means. Vin Gomez, Ed O'Keefe on the scene for us in Atlanta. Thank you very much. Now, we started the show talking about this. I want to get back to it. On the hearing on the attempted assassination of former President Trump. It was an important Senate hearing, and Nicole Killian has been following that story all day. Nicole, summarize the day for us, please.
Well, Well, I think the top lines are that we heard from the new acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, who now takes over after Kimberly Cheadle resigned last week. But in essence, he said that he is ashamed of what happened. He can't defend the security failures that occurred that day. And he said that from firsthand experience, having traveled to Butler, Pennsylvania. He said that was one of his first orders of business, that he actually went up to that roof where the gunman Thomas Crooks was, that he laid in that same position to try to get an understanding of what happened, and in the end felt that it was indefensible that this assassination attempt occurred. That being said, as much as he felt some of the actions that day were indefensible, he did defend the Secret Service, including that counter sniper who took the gunman out within a matter of seconds. He also said that he is not going to rush to judgment. There were many lawmakers on the panel who felt strongly that someone needs to be fired over this, particularly the individuals who allowed the former president to go on stage, those who may have missed any warning signals. But, the Secret Service director got quite emotional, particularly during a very heated exchange with Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, where he said, look, this has kept me up at night for the last 17 days, but I'm not going to rush to judgment on my agent. We're going to do a complete and thorough review and hold those who violate any policies or protocols accountable.
Nicole, I want to play you one of the sound bites from the interim director, Ronald Rowe, about what you just described. Let's play that now.
What I saw made me ashamed. As a career law enforcement officer and a 25-year veteran with the Secret Service, I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured.
Nicole, how much conversation in this Senate hearing focused on the lack of communication between Secret Service and local law enforcement about the actions of the shooter leading up to the assassination attempt?
Well, there was quite a bit of discussion around that. I mean, what Acting Director Rowe said is that the Secret Service did not know that Crooks was armed, that local law enforcement was alerting of a suspicious individual, that they had flagged that, but there were some issues with the radio communication, and so ultimately that message didn't get to the Secret Service that Crooks was armed. So he acknowledged that. He acknowledged that there should be better communications in the future. But still, there were a lot of questions on the part of lawmakers, as I said, why the former president was even allowed on stage if there had been some of these advance warnings by local law enforcement. And also, why more wasn't done to secure that building, which, of course, was outside of the perimeter. So still a lot of unanswered questions for lawmakers. And so this investigation, which was a product of 2 joint Senate panels, is likely to continue on top of a new investigation in the House by a bipartisan task force.
Nicole, was any more light shed in today's testimony on this ongoing controversy over whether or not there had been requests from the Trump campaign for additional Secret Service protection that had either been delayed or denied?
It did come up, but it wasn't a prominent part of this hearing. And much like his predecessor, Director Cheadle, Director Rowe also did not acknowledge whether or not there had been a denied request. I mean, in the case of Cheadle last week, she seemed to suggest that that was not the case. However, Director Rowe also did not say explicitly that a request was denied to the Trump campaign. What he did say, though, going forward is that he has, for instance, authorized the use of additional drones. That was something that was not carried out that day, even though the suspect did do a drone survey of the site hours before this shooting. He also talked about more communication between local law enforcement and making sure that these events are properly vetted going forward.
Nicole Killian on Capitol Hill, thank you very, very much. Move over, Charlie XCX. There is a new brat in Kamala Harris's pack as the rapper Megan Thee Stallion rallies the vote in Georgia. Yes, Megan Thee Stallion. Ahead, former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms joins America Decide to talk about all of that.
Coming up, our series. Wait a minute. Tom, is that you working the camera?
Keep leaning out of your close-up.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7. I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
That desired farm is a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
Welcome back to America Decides. Great to have you with us. Vice President Harris is returning to Georgia tonight for the 6th time this year, but for the first time as the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. Keisha Lance Bottom joins us now from Atlanta, where, of course, the vice president is holding her rally. She served as mayor of Atlanta from 2018 to 2022 and is currently a senior advisor to the Harris campaign. Mayor, I hope you can hear me well. Ed O'Keefe gave us a very good rendition of the energy in that building. Talk to me about the energy differential between what was the Biden-Harris campaign and what is now the Harris vice presidential running mate to be named later campaign.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, 2 different candidates, so 2 different campaigns. As you can see and hear, there is an enormous amount of energy in this building, nearly 10,000 people here, and there are more waiting outside. And so I think it really speaks to the energy that Vice President Harris has and is bringing to this campaign. We're so glad that she's back in Georgia. I believe this is her 15th visit to Georgia since she's been vice president. As she said, her 6th this year. And in fact, in June, she came twice in 1 week. So there's a saying, when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And she has stayed ready with Georgia on her mind. And we're so happy to have her here again.
Madam Mayor, as you know, in politics, you can have this great surge of energy, lots of people letting you know they want to volunteer and help. But the next most difficult thing for any campaign, whatever its size, is channeling those people who have volunteered to do something productive. That strikes me as a big challenge for the Harris campaign. Yes, you've got lots of people who want to do something, but you have to give them something to do, have to have the people to direct them, and the people to monitor what they're doing. Is the Harris campaign ready for that big transition?
We are absolutely ready, and what's been so great is that Vice President Harris has been able to step into a campaign that that was already building up across the state of Georgia and across the country. We have offices that have been open across the state. We have a lot of volunteers, in the thousands who volunteered in just the past week alone, but also joined in our paid staff. So it's going to take a combination of things, but we also know that with every volunteer, they are speaking for a community, speaking to a community. So we are all hands on deck, and we are on our way to victory in November.
What are the counties in Georgia that you believe the Harris campaign has the most work to do in, and why?
Well, oftentimes when people think of Georgia and they think of Atlanta, you really are thinking about a metropolitan area that's close to 6 million people. We have a lot of diverse counties in the metropolitan area, but it's also going to be important for us to hit South Georgia, North Georgia, East Georgia, and West Georgia. You've got Augusta, Savannah, Columbus, Macon, and a lot of other, those are our major cities, of course, including Atlanta, but also a lot of these outerlying counties. And the people across Georgia really have benefited from the Biden-Harris administration. We've seen so much money come into our state, helping with infrastructure, money going to small businesses, money going to our HBCUs and for student loan debt relief. So people have felt the energy of this administration and the work of this administration. And now during this campaign season, we have to make sure that we are reminding them what Vice President Harris has done and what she will do as president.
Madam Mayor, as you well know, the Trump campaign has put out new ads, very significant ad buys in Georgia and elsewhere, asserting that Kamala Harris, the vice president, is a radical San Francisco liberal, more radical, more dangerous than President Biden, clearly an effort to define her in ways that will drag down her poll numbers, siphon off this enthusiasm, etc. Is the campaign ready for that?
The campaign is ready, and it really is an attempt by the Trump campaign to deflect from what their agenda has been. Project 25, I know that President Trump has tried to distance himself from that, but in every single way that he governed as president and doubling down with his running mate, J.D. Vance, calling for a national abortion ban, this is impacting women who aren't just seeking to terminate a pregnancy, but women who are experiencing miscarriages. We know what happened in Alabama with the stop on IVF treatment for women who were seeking fertility treatment. And then the list goes on as they are seeking to abolish the Department of Education that would decimate our public schools across Georgia and across this country. So for every false narrative that they try and create about the vice president, it really is an attempt to deflect from what they intend to do if they are elected. And people need to remember that it's Donald Trump who brags about the 3 Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe, taking away a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to reproductive freedom. And so we're going to continue to talk about what the vice president has done, what she will do as president, and not be distracted by the false narratives created by the Trump campaign.
Madam Mayor, very quickly, what is your sense of timing, and who would you like to see on the ticket with Vice President Harris?
I think any of the names who've been mentioned would be incredible partners. It's an embarrassment of riches. And unlike what's happening with the Trump campaign, I assure you Vice President Harris won't consider dropping her running mate once that person is named.
Keisha Lance Bottoms, from a very loud arena, you have doggedly and quite well gone through the process of talking and listening and being distracted all at the same time. We thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
J.D. Vance's childless cat lady's comment may only be, brace yourself, scratching the surface. Did you like that? Next, we'll take a deeper look into what else J.D. Vance has been saying, especially on his views on gender. You're streaming America Decides.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. For days, Democrats have been highlighting, some might even say hammering, J.D. Vance for policy positions and statements he's made about women, in part due to this clip from 2021, which has since, well, there's no other way to put it, gone viral.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children.
I want to bring in Amanda Hunter. She is a gender and politics expert for the nonpartisan project Gender on the Ballot. It's great to have you with us. So I want to play for you something that J.D. Vance has recently said in defense of his comments to sort of put it in his contemporary context, what we just heard. Let's play that, and I want to get your reaction.
There's a deeper point here, Megan. It's not a criticism of people who don't have children. I explicitly said in my remarks, despite the fact the media has lied about this, that this is not about criticizing people who, for various reasons, didn't have kids. This is about criticizing the Democratic Party for becoming anti-family and anti-child.
Put those two together for us, if you could.
Well, Major, I know that in every election cycle, much is made about how women make up so many critical voting blocks. And so having a mainstream candidate for vice president who has so many extremist views that affect women on his record, certainly the childless cat lady has become a meme and a little bit of a joke, but suggesting that people that don't have children should be taxed at a higher rate, or speaking out against no-fault divorces and suggesting that people should stay in even violent marriages are just the types of policies that will alienate women voters, and I think have contributed to his approval rating being so low the last week and a half.
Amanda, this strikes me as an instance of reading the room. Now, when J.D. Vance is talking to Tucker Carlson, he can read that room and say childless cat ladies lands perfectly. All the judges give him a 10 to invoke Olympics metaphor, since it is the season to do that. But it's a bigger room now. It is a much bigger room with lots of other voices and lots of other interpretations and sifting of what you actually meant and what the impact of that is.
Well, you're absolutely right, Major. And our polling for gender on the ballot of women voters for the last couple of years has reflected that women are tired of the vitriol in politics. They feel like they're on a roller coaster that they can't get off. A lot of women are just simply tuning out sometimes when they can't take it anymore. And so these types of caustic remarks would likely continue to alienate those women who are already feeling so stressed out. And you're right, it is a big room when you're running for president. You need a lot of people in that room, and especially in key states.
Amanda, I want to shift the focus a second away from J.D. Vance and toward Vice President Harris. I well remember the 2016 presidential campaign, and one of the things that Hillary Clinton talked about aspirationally was breaking through the glass ceiling, and it, to the eyes of some, meant that the campaign was more about her and her ambitions, or her being the one and only person who could break this metaphorical glass ceiling, or the real one in American presidential politics. Vice President Harris has not used that kind of rhetoric. Do you consider that an important shift, and if so, why?
Well, I think we're in a completely different place than we were in 2016. When you think about all of the events that women voters have lived through, think about the various women's marches, the Me Too movement, the Trump presidency. We've seen that women disproportionately were affected by the COVID-19 crisis and the economic crisis after that. And so it makes sense that we're thinking about this election differently, and women voters have a lot at stake. We've seen in our polling just last year, a year after the Dobbs decision, that a majority of women voters personally believed that abortion should be legal and available. And of course, the vice president has been a leading voice on that issue. So it makes sense that this conversation that's only been going on for a week and a half is about a lot more than gender. But we know that as a woman, she will be held to a different and higher standard in executive office.
And I've been around presidential politics for a very long time. 1992 was my first campaign. I am well familiar with campaign sloganeering around who likes families more. That is a standard part of our presidential campaign fare. How does it land differently, or does it land differently with Vice President Harris?
Well, we've seen in research that women really are on a double-edged sword. Voters, if women have young children, are concerned about how they're going to balance caring for the children and doing the job, and say they don't have those same concerns about men, even though they acknowledge that that is a double standard. And yet, if women don't have children of their own, they worry that they may not be in touch with their lives. Vice President Harris has done a great job, even in the 2020 election, talking about her extended family and letting voters know that she still has people in her life that she cares for and has to make decisions for, including her stepchildren, even if maybe she has not had her own children. But it's no surprise that that may be used against her, given the long entrenched stereotypes that voters have around motherhood and families.
Amanda Hunter, thank you very much for your perspective.
Thank you.
With Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper both out of contention, who is the front runner for Kamala Harris's VP pick? Our political panel will weigh in with their thoughts. That's next. You're streaming America Decides.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7. That is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels.
100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. Several Kamala Harris surrogates are taking aim at former President Trump for being a little bit hesitant about committing to another presidential debate. Let's listen.
He's afraid to debate her now. Do you see that? And it's not just because she's a skilled debater and a courtroom prosecutor who knows how to make the case. He's afraid to debate her because he can't defend his record.
So let's bring in our political panel, Lance Trover and Zerlina Maxwell. Lance served as press secretary for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. Zerlina is the radio host for Mornings with Zerlina on Sirius XM. So I want to play for both of you because I want to give equal time to former President Trump, what he has most recently said about this question of a presidential debate. Let's roll that.
Yes, I'll probably end up debating. I think actually the debate should take place before the votes start being cast. You know, I had a very good second debate with Biden. I really beat him badly. The problem was 30–40% of the votes were already cast. If you're going to have a debate, you got to do it, I think, before the votes are cast. I think it's very important that you do that. So the answer is yes, but I can also make a case for not doing it.
Yes or no? And let me level set something the former president just said. You heard him say 30 or 40% of the vote had already been cast. Just to remind everyone, the second debate with President Biden occurred on October 15th of 2020. By that time, roughly 22 to 25 million early votes had been cast out of a total of 165 million plus cast in the election. Do the math at home. That's not 30 or 40%. So, Lance, do you expect former President Trump to debate?
What I love about this is a real campaign, we know, because we're having a debate
about debates.
Okay, right.
That's the first and foremost what you need to know. Yeah, of course he is. I mean, look, the last one didn't turn out too shabby for him.
Right.
I would argue.
What's there to be afraid of?
Well, I think he will. The campaign has said he would. I don't know why he wouldn't debate her.
Zerlina, what do you think?
Look, I think that if the answer was yes, he wouldn't have said all of those words before he said yes. He would just say, yes, I'm open to a debate. He agreed to a debate, and obviously there has been a change in the ticket. And he did well, according to Republican analysis, in that first debate. So I don't know what he's afraid of.
Let's just say, I don't think he's afraid of anything. I actually think it's probably a pretty smart strategic move on their part. Look, the candidate has changed. They agreed originally with a different candidate. The candidate has obviously changed. And so I think for them, it may be reworking how this next debate goes. I don't think it's a terrible strategic move on their part, but I got to believe that he's telegraphing, and the campaign has telegraphed that he's going to debate.
It is widely perceived, Lance, that J.D. Vance has stumbled out of the gate. You agree?
Look, I can't wait for the media to go and tear apart whoever Kamala Harris is going to choose as her vice presidential nominee, do the same thing with her and all the things that she said. Look, this is a part of politics and what is done. You examine what's been going on. He's doing what he needs to do by going out there and explaining it and talking about what he meant. But at the same time, I hope the media and others are going to give, all the crazy things that she said as a California senator that are not going to play well in swing states, the same type of treatment that they're giving to J.D. Vance, and also for the candidate that she's going to choose as her vice presidential nominee.
Does J.D. Vance's problems currently illustrate the difficulty of playing to one audience when you have to then play to a much broader national audience?
This is what we have campaigns over. I mean, we have to run primaries, we have to run in other campaigns, and then you come together for a general election, and the voters are going to decide that at the end of the day. I don't think that's what happens in campaigns. That's what they're all about. So, look, I think at the end of the day, again, I think the scrutiny that he is getting is, I hope, what the other side is going to get as their campaign moves forward.
Zerlina, childless cat ladies doesn't come up in every campaign.
No, it doesn't. And as a childless cat lady myself, I have to say that people like cats, Major, and I think that this is a self-inflicted wound. If they had done proper vetting of J.D. Vance before selecting him as vice president, perhaps they would have been more prepared for this backlash. But I also would say that what you're seeing online and the energy is very organic. And so it's unfortunate for the Republican campaign that he's become a meme at this point. And there's not a lot of room for them to work with in order to change the view in young voters in particular, in their minds, that he's completely out of touch, even though he's only 39 years old.
Zerlina, I like your perspective on this. I've talked to several people who, looking at this race and acknowledging the energy and the money, say, yes, the race has shifted, but it hasn't necessarily changed, meaning the fundamentals underneath the race are the same. Voters are still ticked off about inflation. They're still vexed by immigration. And they have, generally speaking, fond memories of the Trump presidency. Whether they felt that way at the time, they feel that way now. What's your analysis of that? It shifted, but it hasn't changed.
I disagree, only because I think that one of the intangibles that we're seeing just in the last week is energy and enthusiasm. And there was a created category, as you know, called double haters, people who really dislike former President Trump and people who were not enthusiastic about President Biden. But they did not hate President Biden. They just were not excited about the options. And now they have a new option in Vice President Kamala Harris. And what you're seeing is organic enthusiasm. And this election is going to come down to the ability to mobilize your base of support. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they have their base of support. But I think that there's a larger swath of voters that are gettable. And you're able to mobilize those folks, young folks, Gen Z, millennials, those 40 million or so Gen Z folks that are making these memes, they're old enough to vote now, Major, and they're going to play a major factor. So I would say that, sure, the polling is still tight. This election is still going to be very close. But the intangible energy is something that has shifted, in my opinion.
Lance, you get the last word. What do you think about this? Shifted, but not changed.
There's no question she has given what I call a pulse bump to the Democratic Party. But let's face it, 12 days ago, they had no pulse at all. So, they had nowhere to go but up. Yeah, look, she is doing that. I suspect that will continue probably through her vice presidential pick and then the DNC. But at that point, voters are going to hone in on issues. And let's face it, she has taken some very far left positions out there that are not going to play well with swing voters. And I think the more voters hone in on those issues and take a look at that, the more that we're going to see this change up a lot.
Quick answer. Who's the incumbent in this race now?
It seems to me Kamala Harris is the incumbent at this point.
Zerlina, who's the incumbent in this race?
Well, I think former President Trump is the incumbent. He's the one that we all know about, and we lived through a global pandemic that he mismanaged, so we all remember what that was like.
Ladies and gentlemen, trust me, that is going to be one of the sub-themes of this election. Who is the incumbent? Lance Trover, Zerlina Maxwell, thank you very much. The Israeli Defense Forces have attacked Lebanon in an attempt to take out the Hezbollah commander accused of killing 12 young people in Israel over the weekend. How this move is stoking fears here and abroad of a potential wider war. You are streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. Vice President Kamala Harris says, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself after it conducted a strike on a suburb of Beirut in Lebanon. Israeli military sources say it was targeting the man allegedly behind an attack in the Golan Heights over the weekend that killed multiple children and teens. Olivia Gazis joins us now from the State Department. Olivia, catch us up on the latest between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, specifically Beirut, and any U.S. response so far.
Sure, Major. Well, this was not an insignificant retaliatory move by the Israelis, striking within a suburb of Beirut, obviously a densely populated area where civilian lives were very much at risk. The IDF has said that it was targeting a senior Hezbollah commander, Fuad Shukur, a close advisor to Hassan Nasrallah, obviously the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon, who was allegedly behind that attack in the Golan Heights that killed 12 young people, including children, over the weekend. We are still waiting for a full picture at this hour of the collateral damage that this strike resulted in, as well as for solid confirmation as to whether Shukur is actually eliminated. Israeli sources are indicating that they have gotten their man, but there are still conflicting reports as to whether he may have survived that airstrike, and that to an extent will determine whether Hezbollah sees itself as locked in to having to respond to Israel's response and prolonging this kinetic exchange. An Israeli official has since confirmed to CBS News that the Israeli government did give the U.S. a heads up they were going to take the strike. Up until now, U.S. officials have been strenuously messaging that they do not believe an all-out conflict between the two is inevitable, saying instead that Israel can and will defend itself, and the U.S. commitment to Israel's defense is ironclad, but again, that an all-out conflict can be forestalled.
And Olivia, you have some brand new reporting on Iran and Russia trying to undercut or involve themselves in the 2024 presidential campaign. Please explain.
Sure. So U.S. intelligence officials have been providing regular briefings on the threat landscape and did so 100 days out from the election this week. There are no major surprises. Russia is the preeminent threat thus far, meddling, stoking societal divisions, and officials believe interfering in support of former President Trump's candidacy in this election. Iran had been cast as the chaos agent, also trying to stoke divisions, principally surrounding the conflict in Gaza. Officials revealed this week that they actually believe the Iranians have unspooled a campaign to denigrate candidate Trump's efforts in this election, calculating that his election would actually be more deleterious to the relationship between Washington and Tehran. The other major player, of course, is China. Intelligence officials believe right now that Beijing probably will not intervene in a major way in the presidential election, but they haven't ruled out that Beijing may target some down-ballot races and are actively monitoring that front.
And Olivia, remind the audience, when we talk about this foreign actor intervention or involvement in U.S. elections, how is it most commonly manifested?
Sure. Well, for one thing, it's interesting right now that Iran and Russia appear to be at cross purposes, right? They are simultaneously denigrating and boosting the same candidate. And that's only interesting. They were on opposite sides in 2020, but they did not have the burgeoning military and technological partnership that has blossomed over the past year. U.S. officials have painstakingly pointed out that the Iranians have been providing drones, helping construct a drone factory inside Russia to help its efforts in the conflict in Ukraine, and the Russians are engaging in that quid pro quo. We believe sending military hardware and, again, sharing technological know-how with the Iranians. So they're at cross purposes when it comes to U.S. leadership here, and it's not yet clear whether they're going to ultimately influence each other's influence campaign in order to come out on the same side.
And social media is the place where these influence campaigns, at least initially, start and they hope expand, correct?
Absolutely. And one thing that intelligence officials are flagging this time around are what they call election interference in a box services. Basically, that the Russians and the Chinese appear to be hiring polished PR and marketing firms to do their interference for them, to engage in messaging that seems more authentic to Americans than a Russian masquerading as an American might. And the way that they do this, at least in the past, Russia has used Russian-based services to basically set up sham news outlets, hire contract writers for small fees, Americans who will unwittingly write copy for Russians' news articles that, again, look and sound authentically American, but are in fact furthering a Russian effort. So that's an industry that apparently has grown in the past 4 years. The U.S. has sanctioned Russian firms that have done this in the past, but now this is a global enterprise, and officials yesterday in a briefing would not specify where these firms are located or whether new investigations have been opened into them, but they have flagged that this is a very serious concern leading up to November.
A more polished form of disinformation. Oh, goody. Olivia Gazis, thank you very much.
Thanks, Major.
Now that North Carolina Democratic Governor Roy Cooper has withdrawn from VP consideration, we are following those still in the running. Reports from across the country. That's next. You are streaming America Decides.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that?
Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
This really
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean?
What does that mean in
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has that glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app. An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish that you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good? Mm-hmm. Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
So if we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides is your place for fact-based, unbiased reporting.
At the White House, at the Capitol, on the campaign trail.
What do you say to those in your party?
Any cracks in the Republican Party?
Our reporters and our anchors travel the country talking to voters like you
about the issues that matter most.
Immigration is really a factor right now
that are going to be driving your decisions.
What would you say to those who say, look, that's just democracy at work?
Listening to you and bringing your voice into our coverage.
I want a strong, proud America.
Is democracy on the ballot in 2024?
Let us help you decide.
America Decides on CBS News 24/7.
Stream our expanded one-hour program Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
When people say who's first to get in the morning, that would be me. Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here.
We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way.
We take you places, we teach you new things, and we make you feel like, you know, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper has withdrawn from consideration to be Kamala Harris's running mate. But several other contenders still remain in the race to be selected for that coveted running mate position. Our reporters are across the country covering the latest developments in the VP sweepstakes.
My name is Aaron Navarro, and I am here at the Six-Man Center, where Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania just stopped by the Philadelphia youth basketball camp to talk to young hoopers as well as reporters afterward. He was asked repeatedly if he would take the position as vice president to Kamala Harris. Now, Shapiro is part of a group of several Democratic governors potentially in the running for Harris's running mate, and sources tell CBS News that that timeline for her to pick her running mate is compressed, with August 7th being a deadline in Ohio for ballot access that they need to hit. Now, Shapiro repeatedly said that it is a, quote, deeply personal decision for Kamala Harris to make, not really showing where he lies on all the sweepstakes and the potential of him going to the White House. But he also went on the attack of former President Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance. Shapiro said that Vance is not off, quote, to a great start. And I asked Shapiro about the initial attacks from Trump calling Kamala Harris, quote, evil or having a low IQ, as well as the new ad from Trump's campaign tying her to the southern border. Shapiro said it's all a sign that Donald Trump is scared about the change at the ticket, scared about running against Kamala Harris, and in Shapiro's words, scared of his own record.
I'm Shauna Mizell in Louisville, Kentucky, where I've been following the state's governor, Andy Beshear. Now, Beshear's been floated as one of the potential vice presidential running mates for Kamala Harris, and his appeal stems from the fact that he's a two-term Democratic governor who's been able to get elected in the state of Kentucky, which has a Republican-led legislator. He's been a very vocal supporter for Harris since Biden endorsed her, and in fact, he urged the Kentucky delegates to rally behind Harris and pledge their support, and that was instrumental in helping Harris become the presumptive Democratic nominee, although the delegates have not yet voted. Now, Beshear didn't have any campaign or political events in Kentucky today, but over the weekend, we followed him to Georgia, where he attended the opening of a Democratic county campaign office, and there he responded to some of the attacks that we've heard from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance lobbed at Harris. And Beshear really presents that contrast when it comes to J.D. Vance, who has roots in Kentucky in the Appalachia area, and that's another area where he could appeal to voters.
Thank you all for your reporting. That does it for today. We will be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report with John Dickerson starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report for July 30th, 2024. I'm John Dickerson. Will the simmer turn into a boil? Israel has hit back at Hezbollah, blamed for Saturday's bombing of a field of teens playing soccer.